Welcome back to Sunday Self Love with Mia Zamar. Today we're sitting with Danielle Gilmore in Hot Atlanta, and we're talking about holistic wellness.
Yeah. Hey,
Hey! So let's get into it. You
let's
ready?
do it.
Okay. So I want to start from the very beginning. What is your story? I feel like what is the moment that brought you to like where you're sitting at in this chair right now?
Wow, that is an amazing question. I wasn't expecting that one right off the top.
I want to start from the very beginning.
Yeah, let's do it.
Day one.
So, day one, wow, there was my mother and there was my father, and they were interested in each other, and they merged, and I started sprouting, and then eventually I kind of came out of, my mom and got on the planet, and no, really, that is a really great question. That's going to cause me to think a little bit, but like the brief annotated version of things. Grew up in the Midwest, single parent household. My grandma was in the picture a lot of the times though, so my mom didn't have to do it alone. Experienced some trauma very early on of all sorts. Developed some addiction issues that I feel like were probably always there, but once some trauma came into the picture, then they especially got exacerbated. That's the right word I'm trying to use. And then from there, just kind of rode that wave of self-destruction for some time until I finally came to meet individuals who showed me and told me that I could do a lot better than what I was doing. And I got in some recovery spaces and learned some things and continue to learn some things and continue to show up to those recovery spaces, and that's how I got to you now. Of course, that is the very brief annotated version, but I think that's a pretty good depiction of what's taking place so far.
Okay. Can you share with us more, like, what does recovery mean? Like, what's the definition of recovery?
Absolutely, and I think that is a very broad word, and what it means to me will definitely vary what it means to someone else. So what I think it means is reclamation and reformation of the self. Mm-hmm. Like, it's essential for some of us who, like I mentioned, have experienced trauma of all sorts, that we come to better understand how to reclaim what was lost, what was taken on some level. So recovery for me means healing, growing, developing, learning better ways to go about doing things on a daily basis. Just kind of taking back the self from all the destruction that I've experienced.
Okay. And part of your recovery journey was a weight loss journey.
Mm-hmm.
So what does weight loss look like while still being in the frame of like being holistically healthy and also like body positivity?
Beautiful question. Very beautiful question. My journey looked like initially me showing up to recovery rooms that were specifically centered for people who had eating disorders. And my very first meeting, I was probably almost 400 pounds, 25 years old, around about. I had been diagnosed as pre-diabetic, so I've been put on a medication that I had refused to take because I was still in denial. I also had really high blood pressure, so I was on a water pill. Things of that nature. And I can only speak for myself, of course, but being a woman who was overweight, for me, it felt like everything hinged on that. Like, life will get better once weight is gone. Life, my whole life looks like this because I'm so large. And aligning myself with the recovery program that I mentioned, I have so far released a little over 160 pounds. And I've had that off for about the last 3 years. And I'm seeing that the weight was just a symptom of what was going on in my mind. Mm-hmm. And so now that I'm in a smaller frame, I think that's where the body positivity comes in. That's where more of the recovery comes in, and better understanding that, like I said, the weight just happened to be there because of all the other things. The mental weight, if you will, attributed to the physical weight. And the whole body positivity thing is really forcing me to see my own journey and the journey of others in a new light, because one who was obese my entire life, I would look at other individuals and make assessments and judgments based on how they looked around what was going on with them. And I think we all understand now that just because someone's overweight doesn't mean they're unhealthy, and just because someone's at a healthy, what would be presumed to be a healthy body weight, doesn't mean they're healthy. So really, it's just I don't know, acceptance is being the answer around all of that, and sharing my journey, but also not trying to make it the only journey. Mm-hmm. The way that I chose to recover, there are several other modalities to participate in. to get well around some of the issues that I feel like I present with.
Mm-hmm. When I think about body positivity, I feel like it's one of those funny things that it's so such an individual experience, and I guess I'm curious because I know for myself as a person who struggles with weight, but also struggles with how I see myself, my trigger is always how people speak to me. So when people see me about my weight, it's almost this thing where like I wish people would never bring it up. So when people say to me like, "Oh, like you look like you've lost weight," that for me is a trigger that I suddenly go into this like mental loop where I'm like, I'm like, what did I do to lose weight? I didn't know I was doing anything to lose weight. Now I need to do all more of that thing. And sometimes that thing is just I haven't really been eating or taking care of myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious in terms of what that looks like for you, not only in your own space and your own routine, but dealing with the world and like how the world treats you.
Wow, you are on with the questions. Again, I can only speak, of course, from my own perspective. But taking off that weight was like a complete like head rush. And we even talk about this in some of the recovery groups that I find myself in. We talk about what's called this pink cloud, where you're floating because individuals see you and they say things like, "Oh my God, look at you, you look great. What are you doing?" And it's a head trip for me at least. And I can remember the very first time that I saw someone from high school. Because by the time I was in high school, my senior year, I probably was about 270 pounds. I've always been a really large woman. So I saw someone from high school who, like, their mouth literally dropped open and she just stood there and stared at me. And it's like, what are you doing? You look great. That's amazing. I can't even explain what it felt like. It just, like, felt like I have arrived. For someone who's been overweight their entire life and felt completely invisible to the world, to finally be seen, it was like, I am here now. But just like everything, that feeling is short-lived. Mm-hmm. And there always came and still comes that moment where, and I tend to do this dance where it's look at me, look at me, look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me. I tend to toggle in between those two spaces. And so it also bred some resentment for me because there were individuals who wouldn't give me the time of day, like when I was a much larger woman, who would come around when, in a much smaller frame and try to have conversations with me and be friends with me. And it was just like, it made me think about a lot of things. One thing that it made me think about is how our body type can cause us to be discriminated against. It also made me think about how I have discriminated against others based on body types. And it even caused me to do an independent research project that found me like all the way over in Oxford, England, with a women's leadership symposium, and I talked about obesity in the African American woman, like because there's so much more to it than just that, And I kind of got on a tangent there a bit, but just it's cultural, It's the groups we run in, like our circles, like it's just been amazing to witness. And I almost feel like I've lived two lives. Like there's myself who up to about 25, 26 years old, I had no frame of reference for what healthy eating was or what a healthy lifestyle was or what holistic health and wellness was. And then myself now at 33, I'm still on that journey, always will be. But I have more of a better understanding of what health and wellness and holistic health means for me now. And it's like two different lifestyles. And two different lifetimes, honestly. And again, I just bounce back to acceptance being incorporated in there. And the last thing, and I work at being really mindful about how I talk about weight and things of that nature, because I feel like when you're that new convent, you want to like change the world. Like I would literally go around like family members and things when I first found recovery rooms and be like, there's a program you can do that. And honestly, that's how you lose friends, because not everybody is ready for that kind of message. And again, like I said earlier, just because someone's carrying extra weight does not have any reference about their health and well-being, the totality of it. So it also, in my own journey, I'm learning compassion and tolerance, and maybe not so much tolerance of the self, but I don't know how to think about that word tolerance. I like it, but I'm wondering how I've learned that on my journey. But just basically understanding that there are many, many ways to recover, and that weight is a sensitive issue that has all kind of cultural things wrapped up in it, and it needs to be handled delicately when we discuss it. At least it's been my experience. Mm-hmm. I definitely like when it's handled delicately when it's being discussed with me, because there's so much more underneath it than just what I'm eating. A lot of the time, it's what's eating me.
That really put me in thought. Okay. So can you share a little bit what health looks for you? Like, what is your regimen? So mind, body, heart, soul. What do you do?
You may have to repeat those. Okay.
Okay.
Mind, body, heart, soul. Okay, yeah. From mind, reading, watching TED Talks, listening to podcasts. Like, I try to fill my mind with positive things, because I am one who's really prone to go down quickly when I start even thinking about things that aren't so good. Like, I can plummet. That's just kind of been there my entire life. So I try to keep myself up, like, by listening to positive things, aligning myself with positive people, working at being a positive person, accepting myself, admitting things when I'm wrong, making an appropriate amends quickly. Like, those are the kind of things that help me sleep really good at night, usually. So on the mindset, meditation, mindfulness, taking breathers. Like, I've been out in nature. So nature is I think it hits on all those that you said, for the mind, the body, the spirit, the heart,
soul.
The mind, the body, heart, and soul. Being out in nature does it, all of those for me. Just love it, love it, love it. The heart, man, aligning myself with individuals who have my best interests at their heart. Being authentic as I know myself to be at any given moment. Admitting my wrongs. I have been one to be very, in my past life. No, but I have been one sometimes to be very rigid and hold on to a thing and want to be right. But I'm learning things like, do I really want to be right, or I want to be happy? Sometimes those two don't exist in the same space, and so I have to get okay with that. And I'd rather be happy any day than being right. So, restoring relationships. Like, I got cool with my father probably the last couple years of my 20s, right? And in recovery helped with that tremendously, because I started to see that having a relationship with him wasn't a one-sided thing. I needed to be present for it as well. So restoring relationships, the same with my mom. These are people that I absolutely admire, of course, but there's been trauma there, and I've had to accept that and admit that. I've done quite a bit of therapy, which also kind of falls in all those categories for me that you mentioned. Support groups. Support groups specifically geared towards women who've experienced sexual trauma, which is a part of my history. Really working at looking at some of these things that have taken place in my life and how they've affected me. The last one.
Soul.
The soul. Something that I recently started doing. I've been a Buddhist practitioner since 2009. But I started out in a Vietnamese tradition. So I would go to a temple where the lectures had to be translated for me. I got to Atlanta, and I went to a couple of the services at a Vietnamese temple, and they didn't have a translator. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to need to find another sect to align myself with. And, I could go into the story, but the universe is so divine, where I ended up meeting someone who practices the tradition of Nichiren Buddhism, which all of it is in English. And so I've been chanting for the past couple of months, and it's amazing to me. I can't even understand the science behind it, but actually when I'm chanting, I feel my heart opening more. I feel my soul just feeling in tune with abundance and everything around me. So aligning myself with that spiritual tradition is something I do for my soul, my mind as well.
Can you walk us through, I guess, a day in the life, 24 hours? What does that look like with everything you just said? How does it get incorporated together?
Yeah, it's a great question. You are what, 6 for 6 in great questions? I've lost count. A day in the life. So, and this is a day in the life where I'm very on point. Okay, let's.
Okay.
This is like perfection day, which
Give us a middle.
A middle.
Yeah.
You want the whole truth.
Yeah, the truth. Because like perfection days, how often do they happen?
Oh boy. Once a. Okay. No, really. So a day. I tend to wake up pretty early, about 6 or so, sometimes 5:30 ish. I pray. That's almost the first thing that I do most days, and I mean like real position of like submission pray, like on my knees at the foot of my bed. That helps me feel grounded and get right sized in the eyes of what I consider to be my higher power. I read literature from groups that I'm aligned with around recovery. I have someone that I've been texting for the last probably 2 years or so. After I read a particular piece of literature, we text each other back and forth, let each other know what we think about it.
2 years?
Yeah, it's been about 2 years that her and I have been texting each other back and forth. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And she's still in the Midwest. So, like, we started doing that in Indiana, and I have brought that to Atlanta with me, and it's really amazing, and I feel accountability in it. Let's see, from that, I write, usually, for about 10 minutes or so in the morning, stream of conscience, whatever I got going on. I usually do a gratitude list in that writing. Let's see, from that writing, okay, when it's warmer out, okay, I know we said no perfection, but like when it's warmer out, I tend to go for a 30 or 45-minute walk in the morning time. And then I come back in, I have breakfast, start getting myself dressed for work. After that, get to my office. And sometimes I work from home or from a remote location. That's a real awesome perk of my current position. So I get to the office, have coffee. Coffee's life. So, and then the day just gets rolling. And then when I get home in the evenings, I have dinner, right? And sometimes I go for another walk, depending on what's going on in the day, or if I didn't do it first thing in the morning. I have what's called, well, they're like mentees, folks, women that I mentor. They call me throughout the day, so I have conversations with them. I also have people that I call who mentor me. Have dinner, chill. Go to bed, rinse, wash, repeat. Okay. Hope I didn't bore you too much.
Okay. So I'm curious, because I know this is one of your passions, for you to talk more about, specifically in America, Black women's wellness, like holistic health, like what your thoughts are on that. It's a really big question, I know.
I'm brimming. What are my thoughts on that?
But I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
I have so many thoughts on that. Actually, my position, I currently work for an organization as a program coordinator for a Black Women's Wellness Program. This is a dream job. It's not without its challenges. I have been saying to myself lately, man, sometimes dreams feel like nightmares too. Not necessarily referring to the job, but just saying, it's a dream gig. But it has its challenges, and actually some of those challenges are engaging women in some of the programming that we create for them. I just feel like, don't quote me, you can't quote me, but I really feel like the Black woman gets left out. When we think about these movements around health and restoration and reclamation and recovery, and not a lot of conversation up until recently with this whole Black Girl Magic emergence, where we've just been in the spotlight, and it's been known that all across the country we are wrecking shit, like in an amazing way. But I feel like prior to that, not a lot, and still even after that, in some of the spaces I find myself in, not a lot of conversation is being had around what the sisters need and letting the sisters decide what it is that they need. I'm seeing sometimes that there's grant funding and things like that that are given towards these endeavors, but for me it feels more like wanting to police the reproductive issues that may be there, wanting to police other issues that may be there, but hardly ever is anyone going to the sisters and saying, what do you need? What do you want to see happen? What ails you? Where does it hurt? How can we help? And that's what I try to do in my work and in my personal life too. And I've had events sometimes just in my position where we've had women come out. And I mean, some of these women are at the top of their game professionally, doing amazing things in the fields that they're in. And they say things like, I came out here tonight and I didn't know that I would have the kind of space to say the things that I've needed to say. Mm-hmm. Right? These spaces are not there for us a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. We have to consciously create these spaces. And we're lucky when we find ourselves in these spaces, I think, because I feel like it's so many women of color who are isolated and not in communities where they could thrive. Like, and they could use that kind of encouragement. You know, the black woman, I feel like, has been the worker horse. You work until your back breaks and then you lay somewhere, right, incapacitated, and hope that someone will love you enough to come check on you. But there are times when that doesn't happen. And this is a tangent a bit, but this startled me. This sister was like in England or somewhere. And young sister, I don't even really know how she died because the article didn't go into it. But this sister sat on her couch for 3.5 years before somebody discovered that she had died. 3.5 years. Like, she had automatic bill payment and things like that. So these bills are continuing to be taken out and things like that. And no one's checked in with this sister. I didn't believe the story. I thought this is not real, but it was a very real story. And it just made me think about the loneliness and the sadness that some of us experience. So holistic health, to tie that all together, it looks like community. It looks like reaching out, making the effort to connect with your sister, regardless of what her body type looks like, what her income level is, how many children she has, by how many fathers, etc., what her sexuality is in general, whether or not she wants children. Bridging the gap, really. Because another thing that I feel like sometimes is we've also been bred to compete against each other.
Yeah.
And so sometimes one of us will get the information being whatever it could be that could improve the life of another. And we feel like we got to hold on to it so tightly because if we share it, then it's going to decrease our space. Well, that's not true because together we get better. Mm-hmm. So if I ignite my sister with some information that she can use to improve her life, it's only going to improve my life too because we share this planet. Mm-hmm. So that's what holistic wellness means for me. Like, each one teach one. That's how we reach one type approach. Actually talking about the issues. We skirt around it. Like, that's another thing with some of the programming that I do. We use real words. How are you feeling? Fucked up? Fucked up is a feeling, ain't it? Isn't it? Ain't it? Isn't it? Like, I'm just saying, right? And then sometimes we don't know how we're feeling. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just feeling. And that's welcome too. So just having real conversations about these things. Mm-hmm. Not sugarcoating it. Mm-hmm. Not acting like these issues don't exist. Because, and I told you the whole independent research deal, I found some information from the Center for Disease Control saying that about 82% of African American women are obese or overweight. That's an epidemic. When we see these kind of numbers in the white community, right, things are being done. And it's because people of color are the canaries in the mine, I feel like, right? And that whole euphemism is that we're the ones that are used to test out theories and things, right? That long history has shown that whatever's going on with the people of color, you just kind of watch it, let them perish a bit, and then when that jumps off into the white community, then it becomes an issue that needs to have funding behind it, like heroin usage here in the U.S. Heroin usage was a huge issue in the black community from the 60s and the 70s, but it was criminalized. These people were thrown in jail. Now that it's hit the white communities and the youth are dying of drug overdoses, it's become more of an issue now that we need to talk about rehabilitation, right? And we need to talk about rehabs for people to go and stay in and things like that. Well, that same kind of grace wasn't afforded to those back in the 60s and 70s that were brown. So, and that was a bit of a tangent, but I'm just like, some of the issues around being holistically healthy and well is even understanding that it's designed for you not to be. Mm-hmm. Right? For me, that was the first awareness, is like, me doing some of these things that I do, someone somewhere doesn't want that. Mm-hmm. And someone somewhere doesn't want me to carry this message to others who look like me, because the majority of the recovery spaces I found myself in, I've been the only black person there and the only black woman there. Mm-hmm. So, the spook who sat by the door. Right?
Yeah. I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I'm thinking 2 words popped up to my mind, and that is scarcity and co-opting. And I think about that from the perspective of being Jamaican.
Yeah.
And I think about, because there's this funny thing that I see specifically when I'm in Jamaica. And what that looks like is a lot of what you're talking about is like holding that information in terms of scarcity is interesting because I feel like in Jamaica, because of how things are set up in community, there's this like, it just happens naturally. There's this flow of like information is shared because it's shared in this like this storytelling kind of way. Mm-hmm. Like it's just told to you like this is what you do to heal this thing, or just what you do to do that thing, and it becomes like very much a story, and it gets passed on because you know your cousin will tell you that you need to do this thing, or your sister or your mom, and so on and so forth. And these stories are told in all these ways of how to take care of your body.
Yeah.
And then I see more so how American media has like imported itself into Jamaica and how these things are shifting. Mm-hmm. So I feel like what you pinpointed around culture earlier on is really prevalent in terms of like information, how it's shared. But also I'm thinking about, when I say co-opting, I'm thinking about all the things that we naturally do that keep us healthy, but then we're made to feel shame and guilt about it. But then we see other people, particularly white folks, doing the same things that we are made to feel some type of shame and guilt about. And I feel like a lot of the times our just natural ways of being are co-opted and then sold back to us in all kinds of different ways, whether it be through media or whether it be through food consumption and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. And I think
for a quick send-off, can you give us 3 tips? If you could give us 3 takeaways that you really want, specifically women of color and Black women, to really have in their toolkit moving forward when thinking about holistic health and wellness, what would it be?
I've had the opportunity to do quite a few interviews, podcasts, etc., and this is always a question that comes up. So you would think I would be more prepared with these 3 tips to give the sisters, but the very first one that popped in my mind was love thyself. Right. Love. I can't even say enough loves that will last for the remainder of this interview. The self. Love the self. As you are, how you showed up, what your hair looks like, what your body type is, what clothes you wear or don't wear, how you conduct your sexual life or don't conduct it, who you partner with, who you love, how you love, whatever their sex, gender, orientation is. Love the shit out of yourself. Because everything around us tells us not to. So it's essential that you love yourself. And then I'll put like a little dash there and say, to thine own self be true. That's the only one though. I'm going to say that. Love yourself, and to thine own self be true. Which means ask for what you need. Be adamant about getting it too. Because there's always someone that's going to give it to us. In relationships, work, situations, whatever. Love yourself and to yourself be true would be 1. Number 2, remain open to everything, though, that is within respecting of you. When I say remain open, I mean the universe is abundant and for us. And I've seen so many amazing things come about in my own situation just because I remained open and teachable. Like, because there were times when I wasn't. And I think back sometimes, and I try not to go too far down, about some of the opportunities that I didn't grasp when they were present. Because I didn't really know how, most of all. But I also have lots of gratitude and pure joy and delight around the opportunities that I was able to grasp. Because I remained open. So love thyself, to thine own self be true. That's 1. Number 2, remain open. And number 3, trust the process. Trust the process. Really. We can toil and trudge for so long, right? We're always planting seeds. But I will be absolutely honest with you. I was planting seeds 10 and 15 years ago that I'm just now starting to see sprout. And when I say sprout, I'm talking about baby sprouts. Like those little sprouts that you almost want to like, and this is something it's a funny analogy, but right, you want to keep digging it up to see how long the roots are underneath there and then plant it back down again so it can regrow. But it's adamant, it has been adamant in my life to trust the process. All the processes. The professional development process. The healthy relationship process. The familial dynamic process. There's always a process, right? Nature has a process out there. You see the trees, they shed their leaves when they're supposed to. They start growing them again when they're supposed to. The flowers die when they're supposed to. They come back up when they're supposed to. It's the process. Trust the process. So love thyself, and to thine own self be true. What was number 2? I forgot.
Oh, I forgot too. I'm like stuck on this trust the process.
I forgot my number 2, y'all. Come on now. My number 2. It was a good one too.
It was.
Well, number 3 is trust the process. So I'm about to trust the process of remembering what number 2 was, right? Because I'm gonna love myself and be true to myself.
Be open.
Number 2, I'm gonna remain open.
Yeah.
Number 3, I'm gonna trust the process.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, that's dope.
Yeah.
So, for folks who want to find out more about you or want to find you and want to connect with you, maybe want to ask you some questions of their own, how can they reach you?
You can find me in the A. Hey, I had to do that. And I feel so corny too.
I love it though. I love it. It's true though. You're
right?
in the A.
You can find me in the A. No, man, I got websites and whatnot. Soon developing, soon coming, under construction. No, but then you can also email me in my current position, DanielleG@feministcenter.org. I would love to hear any comments, concerns, questions, feedback about what we got going on here right now. My own personal email, D as in dog, G as in girl, 84202@gmail.com. I would give my number out, but I'm taken. But yeah, those are ways to contact me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking with us.
Can we talk though about those rice and peas and plantains? She said she was Jamaican. I think that part got like edited out initially, so we're gonna.
I can hook you up with some rice and peas and plantain.
I'm here for it.
Can we hug it out? Thank you.
I'm appreciative.